So Pressure is a historical drama about D-Day and specifically the weather on D-Day. So, one of the most important lines in this movie is that we must face facts, no matter how frightening they may be. And one could add to that line in this movie that we must face facts no matter the lack of frills, given how straightforward this movie becomes. So, adapted from a stage play, which isn't too surprising the more that the movie goes along, this film never loses focus on the weather on D-Day and debating the best time to deploy troops amid a storm. That restricted nature keeps this film on track to make the drama more grounded than theatrical, despite the urge to flip over the desks when the many heated arguments take place. Although the film is built on urgency, there's a powerful sense of control in how Scott steps into the role of Captain Stagg. Now, as a leading meteorologist, he's called upon to figure out the D-Day forecast with a deadline in hours more than days. And this task is impossible to complete without some doubt and uncertainty. But Stagg doesn't turn down the challenge. Countering his claims on a storm on the way is the hotshot meteorologist of Irving Crick, played by Chris Messina. And he's very keen on name dropping the celebrities of the many clients that he's worked with. Even more aggressive than Crick's refusal to budge on the sunny weather that should be on D-Day, there's the fuming fury of General Dwight D. Eisenhower, played with towering stature and a blaring voice from Brendan Fraser. If Scott's performance was a nuanced display of concentrated intelligence, Fraser is a hurricane of acting that explodes into every room, especially when Stagg corrects Eisenhower on the... he corrects him on the definition... Wait. God, one more time without that because I screwed up. If Scott's performance was a nuanced display of concentrated intelligence, Fraser is a hurricane of acting that explodes into every room, especially when Stagg corrects Eisenhower on the definition of a hurricane. Now, there are areas where the film thankfully expands to make a theatrical movie adaptation worth the leap off the stage. Scenes of the dead bodies that followed Exorcised Tiger are portrayed washing up on shore in waves of red. The storm that rolls in has a powerful effect as Stagg takes comfort in his predictions being correct. There are a handful of shots that stress the violence of D-Day so that the climax involves more than men and women crowding around radios, listening closely to whether or not Normandy was successfully taken. But even with these grand displays, the story never veers off track to get lost in the spectacle of weather or the grit of war. Even the addition of Stagg's pregnant wife is only given enough room to make his motivations more personal, fearing that he'll lose her in the next bombing. The clash between meteorologists and the military is a compelling battle as science struggles to make its case amid those more focused on deployment. There are so many moments where you want to see Stagg just lose his calm and grab Eisenhower by his uniform and just spit in his face with all the importance of weather and try to, if only to illustrate how precipitation works. But Stagg instead displays an admirable patience in trying to explain more through thoughtful words about the importance of science. Because trying to keep that bridge sturdy is Eisenhower's secretary of Kay Summersby, played by Carrie Condon, who is doing her best to ensure that Stagg will be in better communication with the important general. She knows that Eisenhower is more terrified in private, and that Stagg isn't just a cold machine that can never generate a 100% chance of rain, and she does her best to ensure that these two men recognize their shortcomings so that they can make the right call. And as with many films centering around a profession, there's a tactile quality to this picture, loaded with montages of weather balloons ascending, calls being made, and charts being analyzed. And even though those scenes are expected, the energy of these let's get to work scenes they really do hold a lot of appeal in the motivation. So, like, Stagg and his men are not just assembling a forecast, but building a bridge between their scientific know how and the crucial military decisions that could cost lives. And it's thrilling to watch Stagg and Eisenhower attempt to see eye to eye without reducing the scientist to a snide expert and the general to a blustering blowhard. Even someone as brash as Crick isn't portrayed as a cartoonishly evil opposition, as he as you know, as Stagg genuinely believes that that this dude does want to get the right data and forecast. Where even after Crick is disgraced, Stagg is like, I still need your help because you still know a bit about what you're doing, and I need you to analyze this data, and I need you to be a team player, which I really admired about Stagg. And maybe it's just the fatigue of the current Trump administration opposing science at a hideous level of ignorance, but witnessing men in positions of power trying to do the right thing and translate their expertise to one another. Just it felt inspiring, even knowing how this all plays out on D-Day. And armed with an astute mind and a beating heart, Pressure is an exciting tale of weather and war without much fluff. Presented at a relatively brisk pace of 100 minutes, there's rarely a moment that feels like it's dragging its heels, even when going through the expected procedures and emotional hallmarks of a historical drama. The performances are engrossing for the variety of personalities, with Scott's stern approach pairing nicely with Fraser's barking of uncertainty. The stress of the situation comes through well in a movie that is 90% meetings with the military and debates over charts. It might not stray far from its laser focus on the path of clouds, but it works well enough to not get lost within them. The movie gets the job done with its message rung loud and clear, to the point that one audience member that I was at the screening just called out at the credits, and that's why you trust science. And we all kind of chuckled, but they're kind of right, because there was a knowing chuckle throughout the theater of this recognition that these subjects might not always make for the best movies, but they do serve a greater purpose. And thankfully, Pressure was one of the better movies on such a topic. So yeah, I thought Pressure was a pretty damn good movie for what could have just been a very boring movie of charting the weather for D-Day.